Hi, Sarah. I'm Derek. This is Leslie.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Please grab a seat.
Hi there, I'm Sarah, and I'm here for my interview today. Jason has come along as well, and he'll be our interpreter for the interview. While we are talking, please address me directly versus looking over at Jason. He'll be interpreting both into English for you and into American Sign Language for me. Sound good?
So, I'll just give you a preview of what the interview will look like today. So we will be asking you a few questions. They'll be behavioral based in nature. Leslie and I will take turns asking questions. If you're looking for any clarity through the interview, please let us know, and then we'll have an opportunity at the end for you to ask us any questions that you may have.
That sounds great.
All right, why don't we begin?
Hello. In my experience, there are different types of job interviews. How do you even begin to prepare for such a thing? Don't you just come in and answer those questions?
So there is a lot of preparation that can take place in advance. I would first suggest with looking at the job posting and pulling out what skills, qualifications, and experience that the employer is looking for. Think about your previous experience from jobs, volunteer experiences, or education opportunities you've taken part in, and highlight how those are relevant to the job posting. You can then look at information about the employer on the company website, so you can start to prepare for questions you may be asked, as well as prepare some questions to ask them that you're curious about as well.
Okay, I see. That makes sense. So if I was applying for a job in customer service, then I'm going to think of some examples where I provided a good customer service to someone or solved a problem for a customer.
Certainly. Think about the most relevant skills and experience that you have and how that applies, whether that's cash handling or answering customer inquiries.
So now tell me about the different types of interview questions that can happen during an interview, and how do we prepare for those?
There are two types of common interview questions that you'll face. One is behavioral-based interviewing, which asks how you've responded and handled previous situations. They're typically led with provide an example of a time, or please describe a time when. The second type are situational-based questions, which ask you how you would respond in a situation. These questions are often led with, how would you respond? Or in this situation, how would you react?
Okay, I see how this is coming together. I'm getting a clear picture of these different types of questions. So now how do I prepare? How do I get these questions together in my mind so that I'm clear and concise and I kind of don't go off track?
There's a great model that we can use to help us keep our answers clear and concise. That is the STAR model. Let's take a look at the STAR model.
Let's take a look at the STAR model now. After being asked a question like this, make sure to take some time to think about your actual experience from where you've worked. Pausing before you answer is critical and gives you time to find a situation you've been in that is relevant to the question. Now that you have that situation in mind, apply the STAR model to craft your answer, beginning with S, which is for the situation. Begin your answer with the circumstances at work during this time. Talk about it and paint a picture of what things looked like. T stands for task. Continue your answer by explaining just what it was that you had to do. Perhaps a supervisor or someone else at work made a request of you. In this part of your answer, you need to explain just what it was that you had to do. A is for action. Here is your chance to talk about what you actually did. Talk about the process you used. Talk about what steps you had to take to see your way through this particular situation. R stands for the result. You've just talked about the situation, the task, and the actions you took, and now is your chance to share the outcome. It may have been a great outcome, it may not have been a great outcome. Either way, it is important to be truthful in your answer and not try to make things up. Remember, you can always talk about what this situation taught you and how you've bettered yourself from it. After coming across a job posting you're really interested to apply for, don't just immediately up and apply. It is important to take some time and read through the job posting first. Try to determine, what does this team look like? What is the work that they do? What are the responsibilities of this position? What is this organization's purpose? What is their mission statement? Can you determine what their values are? Another good way to get familiar with this organization before you apply is to spend some time on their website. Look around and try to find the answers to these questions. Often, in the world of job seeking, you will be reading through a posting and start to wonder if you are a good fit for this organization. It is vital, in reality, to think the other way around. As you look at that job posting, you must consider, is this organization a good fit for you? Look for an inclusive statement. Here is an example of one. You can see this organization has a diverse workforce. They are accommodating to people's needs, and civil rights are in place. They value workers. They value equality and do not discriminate against anybody. Applicants who are hired solely upon qualifications for the position. You can expect a range of different employees and backgrounds in this organization. And because they are willing to tailor to people's needs, you can anticipate they will also accommodate you. Now that you've gone through this posting and you've seen all the positives this organization has to offer, go right ahead and apply. Once you find a position that looks interesting, go ahead and print it out. Take a look at what this organization is asking for and begin reflecting upon your own experiences that line up with what they are looking for in an employee. Your experience from where you've worked, your time spent in school, playing on a sports team, or your time volunteering are all relevant, so circle those parts of the posting. You are now creating the basis of your narrative for the interview questions, and you can start preparing your STAR answers. Practice makes perfect. Rehearsing these answers prior will help you gear up in the interview and be ready to give a STAR response. We will show you an applicant answering a behavioral-based interview question. Because she doesn't use the STAR model very well, she ends up answering way out in left field.
Tell me about a time when management had to make a difficult decision. What was the situation and how did you behave?
Yes. I remember this one time where I used to work. We always had to document everything on paper. Like everything. Notes and daily happenings, tracking information, and that kind of stuff. So one day this manager guy up and decides, no more papers. We are going to modernize the documenting process by going electronic. A lot of the staff were pretty surprised over it, but they said nothing and went with it without really knowing why the company would even do such a thing. A team was put together to work on this process, so I figured I'd better join in and see how this was all going to work. I thought I would be able to learn the new system, and then I could help out with all the other people I work with. So I went to the training. They talked about how this would work, going from all of our paper files and getting them entered into the new system. I had some feedback and ideas, as did others, and they were pretty good about listening to that. I also realized this is going to be tough. I was thinking, why are you even doing this? But, at the same time, whatever, just leave it be. So I go off, start training the staff on this, and some were pretty good about it actually, and others not so much. I just told them, you have to deal with it. This is what they want, so you need to just go do it. So we all did our thing, and after 2 long years, we finally got everything changed over. Paper copies were no more, and everything was entered into this system. And looking back upon that experience, I would have to say that yes, it was rough. We have illustrated how not to answer a behavioral-based interview question. Let's take a look at a proper STAR answer.
Think about a time when management made a difficult decision. What was the situation and how did you respond?
I actually do recall one situation where I used to work. At that company, documentation was a regular daily practice. Putting pen to paper, we had everything in hard copy. Different trackings, different reports, etc. There was always something somewhere that needed to be documented. To modernize this, our manager had decided we were going to shift into an electronic documenting system. All of our existing hard copies would need to be moved over. This was a curveball for the staff and the working environment. You want everything in electronic formatting now. Well, this changes everything. And honestly, Derek, I felt the gravity of this change as well. A task force had been put together, which I want to be a part of right away, a task force to help with this process. I wanted to learn how this would take place right from the start and go from a hard copy to a desktop version or an iPhone version, etc. As part of that training team, I was involved with the purchasing of our new equipment and the setup of it, purchasing iPhones, developing the training staff would use, and I had first-hand access to the new software that they had purchased. They modeled exactly in the training how to start with a sheet of paper in your hand and end up with an electronic version of it. After completing my training, I would then take this back to my coworkers and start showing them how this would work. I was also able to act as an interface between the staff and the management team, letting them know the good and the bad feedback, whether people were liking this or were really having a hard time with it. With training in place, it was time to start, and having a task of this magnitude would take quite a while to fully complete. In the end, we put in about 2 years of work on this project to see it through. The countdown was on though, and as we slowly watched our hard copies disappear and our software have more and more data entered into it, we knew we were on our way. And finally the day came when we were all complete. Looking back now on this, I think what a beneficial experience that decision had on me. Being a part of training others, being involved right down to the details and working through on this project was great. And in the end, we absolutely succeeded. Let's talk about what to expect at your job interview. Before the interview begins, there is typically a welcome, along with some introductions and small talk.
So you managed to find the place all right today?
Okay, you bet. I mean, it's raining quite a bit out there, but nonetheless, here I am.
Yeah, we've had a lot of rain so far this year already.
Yes, it is what it is.
So.
Starter questions begin right after the small talk. Likely, you will be asked questions like, why are you interested in this position? Or, tell me what you know about our organization. Behavioral-based questions are looking at a candidate's skills in their working environment. An example of this might be how well you communicate at work. Other skills can be asked about as well, such as how you function as part of a team, how you handle challenges in the workplace, how you interact with people, how you achieve outcomes, what your relationships have been like with both management and coworkers, what successes you've had on the job, or what it was like when things didn't work out as you had planned, what personal growth you've achieved, or what skills you've gotten better at. Hi there. Now that I've completed my interview, I wanted to look at the STAR model listed here and show you how this helped me answer the question Derek had asked about a time at work where management had made a difficult decision and how I responded.
Think about a time when management made a difficult decision. What was the situation and how did you respond?
Taking time to respond is key. Think about your real-life example first before you start answering. There's no rush. The difficult decision Derek had asked about was going to be the transition to electronic documentation. I needed to explain the situation first, that traditionally we wrote everything down at work and had kept hard copies. I actually do recall one situation where I used to work. At that company, documentation was a regular daily practice. Putting pen to paper, we had everything in hard copy. Different trackings, different reports, etc. There was always something somewhere that needed to be documented. To modernize this, our manager had decided we were going to shift into an electronic documenting system. All of our existing hard copies would need to be moved over. This was a curveball for the staff and the working environment. You want everything in electronic formatting now. Well, this changes everything. And honestly, Derek, I felt the gravity of this change as well. The task, in my example, was my decision to be on board with management's change and to embrace it. This wasn't just for myself, but for those I worked with as well. A task force had been put together, which I want to be a part of right away, a task force to help with this process. I wanted to learn how this would take place right from the start and go from a hard copy to a desktop version or an iPhone version, etc. As part of that training team, I was involved with the purchasing of our new equipment and the setup of it, purchasing iPhones, developing the training staff would use, and I had first-hand access to the new software that they had purchased. They modeled exactly in the training how to start with a sheet of paper in your hand and end up with an electronic version of it. The action I decided to take was to be a part of the task force work had put together. I felt that this was the best approach after some thought on it. In my answer, I elaborated on why I chose to do that. I talked about having first-hand experience on the transition process. I talked about brainstorming with the transition team, and I also mentioned how I could deliver feedback from the staff, both good and bad, to the team. After completing my training, I would then take this back to my coworkers and start showing them how this would work. I was also able to act as an interface between the staff and the management team, letting them know the good and the bad feedback, whether people were liking this or were really having a hard time with it. I ended my answer with the result of what happened at work. I mentioned how it took around 2 years to complete everything, and also now that it was full speed ahead for electronic documenting. This magnitude would take quite a while to fully complete. In the end, we put in about 2 years of work on this project to see it through. The countdown was on though, and as we slowly watched our hard copies disappear and our software have more and more data entered into it, we knew we were on our way. And finally the day came when we were all complete. Looking back now on this, I think what a beneficial experience that decision had on me. Being a part of training others, being involved right down to the details and working through on this project was great. And in the end, we absolutely succeeded. Part of the interview process may include the organization asking, "Do you have any questions for us?" Whether you are anticipating this or not, you now know to always come to an interview prepared for this. For instance, you can ask, "What do you like about working here?" Or, "How would you describe the team culture?" As you work towards the end of the interview, you must remember that you're not the only one applying for this position. As you conclude, get ready to sell yourself and stand out in the crowd.
Those are all of the questions that we have. I'd like to provide you an opportunity now to ask us any questions that you may have, either about the position or the organization.
One thing I'm wondering about is your personal experiences working for this organization. What has it been like, if you wouldn't mind sharing?
We are now minutes away from the end of the interview, and it's time to own who you are. Highlight your strengths so they know why they should hire you. As you walk out that door, you want them knowing that they would be crazy not to hire you. Let's watch our applicant wrap up her interview. I can't think of any questions right now, Derek. I just want to say that I feel like I am a good fit for your organization. I acknowledge you might be wondering how a deaf person would fit in at the workplace, and I want to assure you that deafness isn't a barrier or a concern. My identifying as deaf actually has a positive impact in the workplace, not a negative one. I am fluent not only in American Sign Language, but in English as well. I am able to work with a diverse population, including those who are disabled or those who are able-bodied. I'm a good communicator. I bring an open mind when I go to work, and I am quite organized and enjoy focusing on the task at hand. And because I am deaf, it is very difficult to distract me. I won't be able to hear that distraction. I am comfortable taking the lead when it comes to coworkers and my deafness as well. I want to show them that yes, we can work together, and yes, you can communicate with me. Again, I feel like I would be a really good fit for this organization.
All right, well, thanks again for having me here today. It's been great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.